Hello, everybody. We are playing the two-man game today.
Pick and
Riley's
roll.
off. Riley's off on tour right now, so me and Colton are going to be playing the pick and roll. We were always pretty good at that, playing 2-on-2, so I think we'll be just fine. What's new with you, man?
Not much. I got a kid growing up here, almost 4 months old.
You
And
mentioned something about teething. That sounds like a bit of
yeah,
an issue.
looks like she's starting to get a little on the early side of teething. So that's really fun. Not a lot of sleep on that, but what can you do? Trying to watch playoffs on the other end of things.
Yeah, yeah, same here. It's been a good second round, man. I feel like every matchup could go either way at this point. The only one that really looks like it might be decided is the game going on right now. Miami up 99-91 on the New York Knickerbockers, trying to take a 3-1 lead. So that series, they might kind of get a death grip on that one. But the rest of the series, I mean, depending on how the Golden State LA game goes tonight, obviously that could go either way. I still feel Boston and Philly. Philly's been just scraping by a couple wins. Harden playing,
Lucky.
yeah,
Philadelphia is lucky. I'm sorry, they are
yeah. Harden either playing atrociously or amazingly. He's just like flip flopping back between those two, and
flopping. Emphasis on flopping. Just kidding.
he hasn't really been a free throw
I know
merchant.
he hasn't.
He's actually hitting shots, big shots, clutch shots. I
Hmm.
actually kind of feel a little bit good for the guy. I mean, I've never been a Harden fan necessarily, but he's always had his fair share of struggles in the playoffs. So it's kind of, I don't know, I feel a little bit good for him that he's playing big in big moments, but it's going to take some more, I think, to knock off Boston. They still got home court. It's a tied series. They still got, get chance in game five to kind of get the series in hold. And then the other series, Denver and Phoenix, that one also really interesting. Denver went up 2-0 to start the series. Phoenix, they look pretty good. And it just seems like they're hitting every shot. Devin Booker, in particular, cannot miss. It's insane how good he's shooting. Again, it's not really from the free throw line. Durant's doing all the damage from the free throw line, but Booker is just hitting every single shot.
Yeah, that's a crazy series. And the Phoenix Suns don't really have a lot of depth. It's literally a two-man wrecking crew right now in that one. And that to me is crazy that they can keep up with the depth of the Nuggets. And, I picked, you and I both picked them to advance against the Nuggets. And, Chris Paul's missed a lot of the important parts of the series. So pretty crazy that they're hanging in there with just two key guys. Aiton's kind of been in and out
Yeah.
mentally. And I still think that's going for a divorce coming up because Phoenix fans are annoyed. Monty benched him for Jock Landale,
Yeah, they're
the
going with
legendary.
Landau instead, and he's giving them good minutes. He's actually
He
doing a
is.
better job on Joker than Aiton was. But yeah, you mentioned the depth comparison. Phoenix not, kind of notoriously not very deep. Denver, probably one of the deepest teams in the league. But it seems like in the playoffs, it's been this way for a long time now, decades now, that the role players kind of start to fade out sometimes in these, playoff
Yeah.
series. They start to get neutralized a little bit, kind of locked down, and it's up to the stars to really lead the way. And that's been the case this series. It's been all Devin Booker and Durant versus Jokic and Murray. It's just those four guys dueling pretty much with, occasionally guys will step up. It seems like at home, the home team, occasionally a role player like last night, Landry Shamit had like 15 points in the fourth quarter or something. He hit a ton of big shots. They were just giving him those shots in the corner, and he hit them. And he was really the deciding factor in that game down the stretch. Finally, they got someone to help the duo there. But yeah, Aiton, that's an interesting discussion. He's like we said, he's been basically benched in favor of Landau. There's already been issues with him and Monty Williams in the past, and they gave him. Did they give him a max? Is that what he got? So max contract, number one overall pick. But yeah, it's he just has those issues of when he's not really the greatest teammate, team chemistry guy when he's not playing either. It kind of seems like there is some issues. He got like a technical on the bench the other night, I think, when he was like sitting on the bench, which is not a great look.
The
So
guy said he wanted to go, basically didn't want to be there. He didn't say that word for word, but there was a lot of rumblings that he wanted out. Indiana signed him, trying to, lure him away, and Phoenix matched because, you don't want to lose him for nothing. But that's what happens when you got a guy that comes back that wasn't really getting along with the coach. These kinds of things happen in key moments. I still think Aiton is a fantastic buy low candidate for a lot of teams. He's on an expensive deal, but he's still young. He's athletic. He's healthy. He's proven in the past in a playoff run to the finals that he can be the third best player on a finals team. So, I mean, he's there and he's there for now, but I really think that they're coming to some kind of a breakup somewhere with that organization. I doubt Monty Williams gets fired. So my point being, it's interesting to see. And Jokic has been tearing him up, but Jokic tears everybody up. And as Blazer fans, I just want to say this, ask you this really quick. What is the most painful thing that has happened in the last couple of seasons in regards to the Blazers? Because there's a lot of things, but I'm focusing on one specific game.
you're making me really think here, man, because
No,
there's been
one
so many
specific game.
moments.
One
I know
specific
what
game.
you're hinting at. Damian Lillard, 55-10 against Denver in the playoffs a couple of years ago. And yes, Jokic looked exactly like that the other
How
night.
does it feel, Denver and Denver fans, to have a historic performance from your best player? The rest of the team does not play defense and lets you down. It sucks. It sucks. And that's exactly what happened to Denver. So I would not be surprised to see Denver kind of sputter and fall apart after that game, just because that hurts when your best player has the, career high. The list of centers that have had 50-point games in the playoffs is this: Wilt and Jokic.
Shaq never did. That's crazy.
So my point being, that hurts losing that game. So Blazer fans know how that goes, but man, it's gonna be interesting to see this series moving forward. And I think the Suns are gonna take it. Chris Paul's gonna miss the next game too, so that hurts, especially going on the road. But I think it'll come down to 7 games, and I think the Suns will probably win it on the road.
Yeah, yeah, last night when I was watching that game, it there was several times where I found myself like, I don't know, even though I picked Phoenix to win, I'm rooting for Denver. And there was a few times where I just found myself being like, somebody help the guy. Like he's doing everything he can to win this game, and he wasn't getting any help. Michael Porter Jr. played like trash. Murray, he contributed a bit, but he hasn't been anything like he was, in game one or
Or
in
the
the
last round.
yeah, the first series. So yeah, like we just said, the role players are kind of getting neutralized, phased out. We'll see as the series shifts back to Denver if any of them can get it going, because that team is much better when Jokic is the facilitator, when everyone's scoring, and he's passing the ball and they're moving the ball around. If he has to score every point, they're obviously not going to win. And he was just dueling back and forth with Booker and Durant, but those two were just too much for him, too much shooting. They obviously probably have a little bit more proficiency from 3-point land and that sort of stuff. So they're able to outduel him. But going back to Aiton real quick, I don't know if I would want him, honestly. I mean, like you said, he's proven he could be the third best player on a finals team, but he's a max guy. He wasn't a max guy when he was the third best player on that team. Can you have your third best player be a max contract? I don't really know if that's feasible necessarily. You might, I
His
just don't
his
know.
max isn't like Dame's max. His max
Yeah,
is like 31 mil versus like 45 mil. The
yeah.
TV deals are only going to keep going up. So, and I think that a new TV deal is coming up in like 2 years. And he'll have like what, 1 year left on this deal after that. I think that I would rather have a guy like that that's actually healthy than a guy like Nurkic, who, while he's cheaper, plays in about 40% of the games, if that. And when he does, he's inconsistent. I'm just
Yeah,
trying to find a buy low, high talent guy that,
I
and I
know.
know contracts play a part, but
I know we have to go with somebody. The Blazers are going to have to go with somebody, but it's also I think they need to be careful with who they go with because Dame's window is very small. It's closing. He's just got a few years left, probably of his prime. And if we choose to go with a guy where we're going to have to pay him a max contract and he can't get the job done, I mean, it might be a little bit too early to bail on Jeremy Grant and call him hit that experiment like a failure or whatever. But it's kind of like that, Jeremy's probably gonna be a max guy, and I don't think he's gonna be the number two banana on a championship contending team. And I don't really know if Aiton would be able to either. I do realize there's limited stars in the NBA, and you have to go with somebody rather than nobody, but it's tough. I wish there was somebody out there that was really, would put the Blazers over the top, put them into contender zone. And I
there is somebody like that, and there's a 10.5% chance of getting him.
all right, yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit. I guess we'll move on from the playoffs and talk about the Blazers. It's been a while since we've really dive deep on the Blazers and their since their disappointing finish this season. They started off with so much promise and just fizzled out over the course of the year. Slowly but surely fell off the map. Damian played, his heart out all season, played one of his best seasons statistically and just from the eye test on the floor. He was amazing, but
He
just had
was.
so little help, and it's going to take either a 10.5% chance of getting a franchise changing star, or they're going to have to make a big move, trade some of those young assets like Simons or Sharp away for somebody that can really make a difference. But I guess we'll talk about the upcoming draft lottery next week. We're hoping to go live to react to the NBA draft lottery. We've had problems with YouTube Live in the past, but we have every intention to go live next week, next Tuesday at is it 5 o'clock, 4:30, something like that.
Yeah, I know it's next Tuesday. It's, a little over, looks like it's 7 days, 22 hours, and 5 minutes from now. So you do the math.
Okay, so yeah, it's probably like 5 o'clock or so.
4 o'clock, maybe even.
Something like that. But yeah, we'll be going live for that, reacting, see when the Blazers get the number one overall pick.
It's
And
happening.
what would we do with that number one overall pick, Colton?
So listen, this is a franchise changing draft lottery more so than a lot of them because there's uncertainty with Dame. That's hanging over everything that we do this offseason. Other teams know that. The best way to get a superstar, is getting the number one pick. Victor, right now, Wenbanyama, is tearing up the French league that he is in. He's playing all the games. He's not sitting out load management or whatever. They're going deep into they're playing in the playoffs. He's the second seed. He's leading the team in all the meaningful statistics, right? He's not sitting out. He knows he's going to be the number one pick. He could just shut it down. No, he's competitive. He wants to win. And he would be franchise changing in just more ways than one. He would revitalize kind of the area around the stadium. I feel like there would be so much hype. That's how big of a prospect he is. He's that good. If the Blazers get the number one pick, their door is now wide open because they can do a number of things. None of them would be trading the number one pick. Unless Giannis requests out, then you call up Milwaukee. I wouldn't trade it any other way for no other player, not one, not in the entire league. And it's okay because you slot in, you look at the lineup then with Wemby coming in, okay? you could shift to playing big. As it stands right now, you'd have Dame and Grant. You could play Grant at the three because he's not a good rebounder. He's actually pretty quick. I think he could play the three. Some people say he can't. I think he could. And he moves down a peg in that role. He doesn't have to be the number two guy. Then you have Wemby at the four because he said he wanted to play the four. He's definitely quick enough to play the four. He can go, we can play small ball and then move him at the five, but start him at the four, just like kind of Anthony Davis has played the four throughout his career, right? And then you right now have Nurk, okay? But then you're looking at Dame, Grant, Wemby, as cornerstones of your starting lineup. Then you could get a little crazy. You could package Simons with whatever you need to do, 3 firsts and get Ayton, okay? And then you're like, Ayton's contract won't work, it will because you have Wemby on a rookie deal. He slots in as a star, and Sharp coming in to start as a cheap deal too. Then you're fine. Then you got
2 rookie deals as starters. That's pretty good.
Okay, but Wemby's going to be ready to come in and at least be an impact player on defense day one. We saw what Sharp did when he started last season at the end of the season. He looked better than Ant did when he was his age by far. So then look at your lineup and it's cheap. You have the starting 5 locked in. They all have talent. They all can score. Like that's a tough lineup. You could even play Wemby at the 5, which I'd rather play him at the 4, and you could trade Ant for like OG. Yeah, you could have Dame, Sharp, OG, Grant, Wemby, and figure out what to do with Nurkic. There's so many options. It would fix all the problems. Just do not trade Sharp and Wemby, and then you have a core right now that can compete, and then you have Sharp and Wemby, which is like the highest potential duo in the league. That would be so amazing. It would
baby Shaq and baby Kobe.
It would be crazy. And the thing is, the highest chance in the league to get Wemby is 14%. Somebody's got to get him. We're sitting here at 5th, okay? So you have, it's a tie for 3 teams would have 14% chance. Then you'd have Charlotte with a 12% chance, and then you have us at 10.5. That's not bad to get the best prospect since LeBron. That's not a bad place to sit. So it's going to happen. I'm speaking into existence. It's happening. But what about the alternate realities where we don't get number 1? Because then it gets a lot murkier, and then we got to make some decisions. So
before we move on real quick, just reading the NBA draft room.com analysis about Wenbanyama. I thought this was a funny little quip. They say the Pistons are number 1 right now. They've got the best chance to get him. And it says Wemby is the best prospect in a decade and one of the best prospects in the history of the game. He'd immediately lift the Pistons into playoff contention. That lets you know how high the league is.
Yes.
He would lift the Pistons into playoff contention. What would that do for the Blazers with an established, superstar and Damian Lillard and Sharp on the come up and, hopefully re-signing Jeremy Grant? He'll probably want a max deal, but you might be worth it if you are, solidifying that starting 5 that could potentially, have a really good year next year. I still don't know if they would be a playoff contender right off the bat. I mean, a championship contender right off the bat, but they'd be a playoff lock most likely if there was no injuries, and they would have a chance to make some noise, I think. So yeah, that would be really fun if the Blazers could get Wenbanyama. Like you said, as a Blazers fan, it sounds like a crapshoot. It sounds like we have no chance, but you just broke down the odds. You just broke down the statistics for getting him, and it's really not that far out of reach. It could happen next week.
When we got Greg Oden, when we got Greg Oden, we had like a 7.5% chance. Which, okay, yeah, Greg Oden happened. Also, Blazer fans, do not let unrelated past incidents scare you, because I know Riley's not here. Riley's a big proponent in, I guess, superstition and this Blazer curse thing.
You'd be scoffing at this whole thing. You'd be like, Wenbanyama's not making it in the league.
You can't. None of that is related. I mean, that people bring up Bill Walton's injuries like that didn't happen 50 years ago and say, yeah, we drafted Bill Walton, so we shouldn't draft the best prospect since LeBron. What? Like, so let's
It
just
is funny how there is a lot of question out there, a lot of just people aren't really they're worried about him a lot from a fan perspective about
I get it.
Wenbanyama just because of his size. Yeah, I think it's something you have to, maybe take into consideration a little bit, but it can't overwhelm your decision making. But yeah, a buddy of mine was talking about, he's gonna break his foot just like Chet Holmgren broke his foot. He said that his trainer, Wembanyama's trainer, I guess, has him doing like barefoot, like animal crawls across the court before his games and stuff, trying to like keep his feet stretched out or whatever. And he was like scoffing at that whole idea, like it wasn't gonna help him. But I mentioned the fact that, Wembanyama's 40 pounds heavier, not bad heavy either. He's 40 pounds stronger basically than Chet, just a couple of inches taller. He's got all the bounce, that a guy like Durant has, where he can really,
Exactly.
move,
He's quick.
uh, kind of slide, kind of he has a real athletic look to him. So
He's
I
playing
hope
in a
that
professional league right now too, and playing like every game. He hasn't gotten, that's a good sign. His body's holding up in professional ball. So I don't know. It would be franchise changing.
But if it doesn't happen and we end up with instead, I don't know, do you want to say the number 2 pick or the number 2 or 3 pick? Somewhere in
Well,
that range.
yeah.
There's, Scoot on the board, Brandon Miller's on the board, the Thompson twins are up there, uh, Jarris Walker is up there.
Yeah.
So, what would you do if we kind of fell into that range where we didn't get the number 1, but we're right in that, second tier range?
So there's two routes you go. Let's say you get the number 2 pick. That sucks because then we were so close, right? But Scoot's on the board, okay, and everyone's gonna say nope, can't do it. If we look around the league and we cannot find a deal for a great player with that pick, I'm not talking just some random good player. You don't trade the number 2 overall pick in a good draft for a good player. You trade it for a great player, and whoever that is may
Give
reveal
me an
themselves.
example. Give me an example of a good player that you wouldn't trade him for and a great player you would trade him
I
for.
would not trade the number 2 overall pick for Pascal Siakam. Okay. That's a good player. He's really good. He's all NBA, but he's like the lower tier. I would trade the number 2 overall pick for Jaylen Brown. So that's the difference. Like,
Yep.
yes, if that right player is there and Dame's still here, go for it. But if you look around and you're like, no, I'm not, you don't want to overpay with this number 2 or 3 overall pick. And if Dame says, dude, trade this no matter what, and you can't find anything, you might have to say to Dame, sorry, man, you might be the one that has to go, which sucks as a Blazer fan to say, but you can't. This is such a good asset along with like somebody like Sharp for the future. You just can't punt on it. You're not going to get the number 2 or 3 pick very often. So if Dame says me or that, I would probably pick the pick unless it's the
I
right
like with
player.
the hesitation that you're showing. It really shows how, as Blazer fans, it feels like blasphemy to
It sucks.
go against Damian Lillard. But I do get where you're coming from. It's like you said, the number 2 overall pick doesn't come around very often. He's going to be 10 years or more than that, 12, 13 years younger than Lillard.
Scoot, you're talking
Uh,
about Scoot, you would take
yeah,
in that
yeah.
situation. Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
either one of those guys are, in that age range. But Scoot's probably going to be the guy at that number 2 pick. I like Brandon Miller too. He has some off the court issues, I guess. I hadn't really heard about this very often or very much, but I heard some of the off the court issues that made me, a little bit less excited about the guy. Who knows? Maybe he's moved past that. He's a young dude, obviously, but I think Scoot is probably that number 2 option. But I don't really think it matters all that much because Damian has already said he doesn't really want to go through that rebuilding process. He kind of said the buck stops at Shaden Sharp. So if you're bringing in another 19-year-old, I think he probably and another 19-year-old that's not named
Right.
Wenbanyama.
Right. He would be fine if he got
Yeah,
Wemby. I think he even quoted was saying he's undeniable. Dame said that. So I think he'd be fine. I think he'd be pretty
Yeah,
excited about that. But
one of the either one of those other guys though, I think it probably would be you're getting closer and closer to a trade them or trade Dame sort of scenario. I
yeah.
honestly think Shaden Sharp could also fit that conversation too. I know we've discussed this before, kind of debated it before. I don't like saying it again. It sounds like blasphemy because I like both the guys so much, but it does sort of feel like you're gonna have to choose one of those guys to really make the what you're building around. It was like we had this almost this exact conversation a year ago talking about Simons and Dame, but this is like even it's become an even bigger deal because you got a guy who's 3 years younger than Simons, but a lot better than him. So it kind of the question gets pushed to the forefront even more. That I mean, you probably are gonna have to pick a timeline, like we've been saying for
We've
a
been saying
year.
it.
Yeah, but I don't. I think with Simons, it wasn't as big of a deal because the age gap. I mean, it's still big, but it wasn't as big, and also the talent differential. It's like Dame is obviously a lot better than Simons, and Simons' ceiling. He's probably not even going to approach what Damian has done in his career. But a guy like Shaden Sharp, he could. It's hard to say right now. Again, sounds like blasphemy. I don't want to say, but he could end up being better than Damian. He's got the size, the athleticism, all that stuff. He really could end up, you know, getting at least getting a better team around him and making a better push than Lillard than the Blazers were ever able to do around
It's
Lillard. So
sad because you've mentioned it multiple times. He hasn't got to play with a lot of all-star teammates, right? Only one, and it was Aldridge that 1 year. But think
yeah,
about this. If you add another young rookie to Shaden Sharp's timeline instead, and then you trade Dame for all these, picks, which, to Blazer fans, it's like, I'm tired. I don't want to do that. He's the best Blazer ever. And I get that, and I'm right there with you. But then, you add to that core and you have, let's say you have Scoot and Sharp as your like core of the future. Tons of potential athleticism,
yeah,
jaw dropping athleticism from both of them. And then you add the picks and whatever young player you would acquire from trading Dame. Then you're like, okay, you can kind of see some talent already, tons of talent on the team. So my goal would be to help Dame out
yeah.
first. But at the second and third pick, it's honestly hardest position for me because I'm not going to just punt the pick away either. I don't want to. I think it gets easier as you drop down to like say, let's just trade it. Like, if it gets to
Yeah.
4 to 5, it's a little bit trickier still because five's actually the least likely. So we're likely to either move up or down. But I do like the
That
Thompson
window
twins a
that
lot.
window opens though, like you said earlier, of probably maybe trading one of those picks for more like a Pascal Siakam type of player.
Yeah, like if you're sitting at 5 or definitely like 6 or 7, then I could be convinced into it. But it's like I can't do it at the second or third pick with the talent on the board. I can't just punt it for any player. So as it drops, it gets more likely. And I like the Thompson twins. They're actually really have a ton of potential as well. Got a lot of size, both six
Yeah,
seven. One's a playmaker, one's more of like a shooter type. And he would fit, both of them would fit amazing with Sharp, honestly. So if you're gonna again, if Dame's pulling the no, this or me card and you can't find anything that's right there, but if you're sitting at like 5 and what if Toronto calls and says, hey, if you trade Ant, a future first, this first, and then we'll give you our pick late in the lottery, their 13th pick. So we'd basically be trading down, trading away a first as well, and trading Simons, which sounds like a lot but Pascal's also only got 1 year left on his deal, but you've built the team around it. You still kind of keep that pick. That's where I could be talked into it. And that's what I'm saying. There's routes there as the pick drops to kind
yeah.
of try and find fair value.
I think there's less. Yeah, exactly. There's just less value than having to trade that 2 or 3 pick. I think it becomes more obvious that if you drop more into that 4, 5, 6, 7 range, that you're gonna
Definitely
have
at
to,
7.
yeah, you're probably gonna trade the pick to try to help Lillard. You're gonna try to, you're gonna go all in on Dame. Like you said, I think that 2 and 3 spot might be the one where it's like you have to question the loyalty to Dame the most, because you could get a guy who could potentially be a franchise, not quite a franchise changer like Wimby, but still a franchise player
They might
to
be.
pair with Shaden Sharp. And
Yeah.
yeah, that could. But if you drop down into that next tier, I think it's more back to Dame. I don't think it's worth bailing on Dame, trading him for one of those guys, because they're probably, the likelihood of them being able to do more than Lillard, has done in his career is less likely.
Right. And you say, like I said before, the most likely thing is actually to move back. That's why it was important to tank and get as low as we could, because we're probably going to move a little bit back. No, not that likely though that we move up, because if you look at the odds, 42% chance to move up into the top 4. That's pretty good when you put it that way. That's not that unlikely. Yes, it's still more likely to move back, and it will suck if it happens. It's not going to happen. We're getting the number 1 pick, but
We already know this. I don't know why we're talking about the rest of these
it's going to
scenarios.
happen.
We already know that we're gonna get Wenbanyama. We're gonna win a championship next
Multiple.
year. We're gonna win next 3 championships. Are all coming to Portland.
Nah, there's going to be some ups and downs, but we're going to win a couple with Wimby and Dame. It's happening.
You're like, don't
So,
don't be unrealistic, Kirby. Come on, there's gonna be
yeah, I mean,
As Charles Barkley likes to say, there's gonna be peaks and valleys.
there is exactly. But Dame will get a ring. But here's the end all thing. So, 7. Let's say you move to 7, and then you're still left with no trade partners. And Dame says, please trade this pick. What do you do? Like, what if a team still wants you to overpay and you're just sitting there at the 7th pick? I just think my overall analysis of this is do not overpay, even if with Dame's pressure. I love Dame, but do not give this mid lottery pick away for nothing. Because look at Shaden Sharp. Shaden Sharp was the 7th pick last year. We tanked for him, and now everyone's obsessed with Shaden and wouldn't trade him for Michael Jordan in his prime. So it's like, you gotta think about this. Like, this young
What
player coming in could be really good. We got Mike Schmitz, the guy that used to be the scouting guy for all over the place. We could trust in him as the building plan for the future.
One thing I'll say about Dame, to his credit, I don't think he's gonna make the Blazers do anything stupid. He's a
True.
smart guy.
He
He
is.
knows that he doesn't want to go through a rebuilding spot, but I think he also doesn't, isn't gonna want the team to give away a pick or a young promising player for nothing. I think
True.
he might pressure them to try to get a more established veteran maybe out there. But if it's not in the cards, if it doesn't happen for one reason or the other, there's, like you said, there's no trade partners out there. If they really want the Blazers to overpay, I think Dame will probably be okay. He'll say it's okay. Keep the pick. Maybe we can do something else as the season progresses, or we'll be able to move Simons, pair Simons with the pick. Maybe as time goes on, teams will be more interested in it. They'll be willing to give up more for it. The sell low scenario will start to go away. So, I think that you got to listen to Dame. You got to listen to what he wants if you're going to keep him on the team and try to build around him. But I also don't think that he's going to force the Blazers into any bad trade scenarios, hopefully.
Yeah. I think one thing we're in agreement on, and Riley is as well, the Dame Simons backcourt is not going to win a championship.
That's probably the biggest thing moving forward. I think
It
this
has to
off
be broken
season,
up.
yeah, this off season, maybe you can start next season with him, but it's got to be high on your agenda by it's the trade deadline sounds so far away, but I would say that's the absolute last point in which if he's still on the team after the trade deadline, then Cronin hasn't done his job. We're not doing what we need to do. It's time to make some serious, reconsider some things and maybe make some big adjustments in the front office potentially.
Yeah. Well, and an
They need to
owner.
hire us. They need to hire us to make these decisions.
Yeah, it's so easy. If I can do it on the trade machine, why can't Joe do it with another GM, you know?
Come on, dude.
I think that the owner is another thing that needs to be really done quickly, but we have no say in that.
Come
So,
on, Phil. We need you, Phil.
Uncle
Uncle
Phil,
Phil.
where are you at, Uncle Phil? Anyways, this upcoming draft lottery is so important for numerous reasons. I'm very interested. This is one of the most interesting off seasons I can remember for the Blazers because it could be, building for the future. It could be saying goodbye to a Blazer legend, or it could be finally a big swing. Because if we go into the next season and we're like another first round bunt instead of a big swing, then I'd rather a big swing. Like, let's just, whatever we do, I'm ready. So I'm excited for this draft lottery. Number one pick time.
Yeah, this last off season, a lot happened for the Blazers too. Honestly, it was probably the most movement into last year when we traded
Mhm.
CJ and
Mhm.
Hiroko and Norman, all those guys. But it's been the most movement, within the Blazers roster in a number of years. And like Joe Cronin said, and we all knew that it was just the first stage in reconstructing the roster. So I think everyone expects big moves to be made this offseason. Hopefully, starting with getting the number one overall pick, Wemby, and then everything else will fall into place. But if not, and we end up with, hopefully, if we don't, hopefully the number two or number three pick, then, some big things could happen there too with a trade for, a legitimate superstar or potentially it's so hard to say moving on from our boy Dame. But you know what? It could be in the long run, it could end up being we could end up doing Dame a favor by trading him. It's not
Dame
like
could come back as that grizzled vet after his contract expires when we're a contender, comes off the bench, hits big shots in the finals. Game over.
there
Do
we
it.
go. Yeah, wherever he goes, he'll probably be, he'll be a stud wherever he goes. He's a monster of a player. I hope it continues to be on the Blazers, but if the cards don't shake out that way, I guess they don't shake out that way.
Well, guys, that was fun. We miss you, Riley.
Yeah.
We see you next week when we're live watching the draft lottery.
Bye.
Bye.